really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
This is the Above It All show. Hello, and welcome to the show today. The last show I did was I was streaming the debate. Hi, Max. I was streaming the debate. Did anyone see that? I saw it. I saw it happen live on stream. It may be the best debate stream of all time. I mean, you know, in the sense of my stream is the best, of course, but like, I'm happy I streamed it because I was able to break the news that it is Jover, folks. I would like to start this show by saying it is Jover. And I also want to say I was skeptical on the term Jover. I was not into it. I kept seeing it written and then pronouncing it in my head Joe Ever, which is like the opposite of what its intended purpose is. Anyway, so for the first time, I'm willing to say it's Jover, everybody. But we're not going to be just talking about that. Of course, it is the most entertaining aspect of today's show. But, we're also going to be talking about some other stuff. It's arguably more important on today's program. Or should I say brogram? Shout outs to the bros out there who are watching. Anyway, we got a program. We got a program today. Well, we got a okay. We got a program. So today's so on the So we're going to start today's show by talking about the pandemic babies, everybody. There are babies out there, and the New York Times calls them pandemic babies. And the New York Times published what I think is a very impressive piece of disinformation here when it comes to the pandemic. Now, of course, if you've been watching my show, either you live in reality, and that means you know that the pandemic is not over, or you've heard someone that lives in reality and you yourself live in a bubble where you can just walk around and go to fucking places without masks on and hope nothing bad happens. But anyway, for all of those people that love living in reality, let's check this out. So we have this weird thing, you know, like New York Times sometimes does this like weird display at the top. Well, we have one of those. Let's check out some quotes. They're coming in and they don't know how to play. I had some kids who went on to kindergarten who still did not know a triangle. I can't tell you the number of families who say their kids are anxious or depressed and their little ones 4 or 5. Now, what the fuck are these people talking about, right? Are they talking about how the COVID-19 disease affects kids' development? Are they talking about how the COVID-19 virus itself is a virus that enters your circulatory and vascular system, and basically makes a military base in every organ in your body and unleashes warfare on your body? Are they talking about how COVID-19 damages the heart, and so kids are unable to run around indefinitely? Or how COVID-19 damages the brain, how it fuses neurons together and creates mini tumors? Let's find out. The youngest pandemic children are now in school and struggling. Teachers this year saw the effects of the pandemic stress and isolation on young students. Some can barely speak, sit still, or even hold a pencil. The effects of the pandemic stress and isolation. The pandemic's babies, toddlers, and preschoolers are now school age, and the impact on them is becoming increasingly clear. Many are showing signs of being academically and developmentally behind. Interviews with more than 24 teachers, pediatricians, and early childhood experts depicted a generation less likely to have age-appropriate skills. To be able to hold a pencil, communicate their needs, identify shapes and letters, manage their emotions, or solve problems with peers. A variety of scientific evidence has also found that the pandemic seems to have affected some young children's early development. Boys were more affected than girls, studies have found. Quote, I definitely think children born then have had developmental challenges compared to prior years, said Dr. Jamie Peterson, a pediatrician at Oregon Health and Science University, whose research is on kindergarten readiness. We asked them to wear masks, not see adults, not play with kids. We really severed those interactions, and you don't get... Wait. Okay. So okay. We asked them to wear masks, not see adults, not play with kids. Now, first of all of you know by now that this is, everything above this quotation is a fact, right? So what is the state of play? Kids are fucking dumb. Okay, and I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm saying literally they have developmental disabilities caused by a virus that destroys their fucking brain. And the adults in the room are blaming it on they wore masks and didn't see adults. Now, what is that talking about? Well, obviously, this pediatrician here is a stupid motherfucker, a Trump supporter, Biden supporter, whatever one you want to call them, who doesn't actually know how to read. They don't know how to read books, and they're complaining about children not knowing how to read. Isn't that interesting? So you're telling me, when do we go into kindergarten? 5? It's 2024. The so-called lockdowns. The lockdown. Not quarantine. Not stay-at-home order, but lockdown! Would have been 4 years ago. So if a kid is 5 now, and the only quarantine was 4 years ago, they would have been One. What person out there put a mask on a 1-year-old? Is that really even possible? Not really, okay? Let's just be honest, all right? Their heads are too small, okay? Not see adults? Okay, when you're 1 years old, when you are 1, and there's a quarantine, and your parents might have gotten paid to stay at home, wouldn't they be seeing more fucking adults? Hey, okay, just asking. I'm just throwing that out there. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it, kids are isolated. Where are they isolated? At home with their parents. You know, adults. Not play with kids? What 1-year-olds are playing with kids? I'm just asking. I'm asking questions here. The only time schools were closed was in 2020, which is 4 years ago. So, how the fuck are you out there really saying that a 1-year-old not being able to have a play date for 3 extra months or something? That, okay, I know. These people are fucking stupid. I understand that we live in stupid town. We live in fuckville, okay? This virus literally destroys the brain from the inside out, okay? It literally creates holes in your brain. It eats your brain fucking cells and creates holes in your fucking brain. But they're blaming a 3-month quarantine that most people did not actually even follow, instead of the virus that destroys the brain. And the reason why people like this exist is because if they acknowledged the truth that the COVID-19 virus is actually an exceptionally disastrous virus for the human body, it is actually uniquely destructive, unlike the flu or the common cold. This is not the common cold. This is not the flu. This is COVID-19. SARS. What does SARS stand for? Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. Severe is in the motherfucking name! And motherfuckers are out there still calling it mild. Or that kids are immune. So if these people were to acknowledge the real world, what the next step would be is them to introspect. Oh shit, how many times did I give kids COVID? How many times did I advocate for school closures? Or rather, school reopenings when they should have been remaining closed? Oh no, I'm one of the people to blame. So instead of that revelation, they can't have that revelation. They can't acknowledge that they made a fucking mistake. So they have to blame quarantines, rather lockdowns, I should say, in quotes, also known as quarantines. They had to blame that. The thing that we asked them to wear masks. We asked 1-year-olds to wear masks. What? No one did that. Nazi adults, they spent more time percentage-wise with adults because more adults were at home with their fucking kids compared to typically. So what the not play with kids? What kind of 1-year-olds are playing with kids to, like, you know, and again, also, most people also still had the play dates. Let's be honest here. Most people still did the play dates. And also 1-year-olds, they're not really playing so much as being in the same area and kind of going like, wah! With other kids in the same. I'm just being honest with you, okay? I'm just telling you the truth, okay? What the fuck are these people talking about? This is an Alex Jones type conspiracy theory. But because Joe Biden has postulated it, you know, Joe Biden, the guy with dementia, who everyone is like, oh, he's lying about Gaza. He's lying about his mental state. But when it comes to COVID, when it comes to your kids' health and safety, Biden is telling the truth. He's a truth seeker. He's a hero. What? Are you fucking stupid? Right, so again, you see quotes like this because the people in charge, teachers that are around kids who don't wear masks or don't teach them how to properly stay safe during an ongoing pandemic, are to blame. Governments who have lied and said kids are immune. Remember, Trump said kids are immune to COVID and everyone believed him. That's why we got in this mess. Joe Biden believed him. That's why we're here. That's why they reopened schools, because they said kids are immune. These are the people who are to blame. But instead, they want to just, it's the hot potato. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Here, let's throw the fucking potato at the fucking window, for Christ's sake. Well, let's keep going here. The pandemic's effect on older children who were sent home during school closures and lost significant ground in math and reading has been well documented. Now again, this has not been well documented, okay? Now again, most kids did not actually stay at home. They went out and did whatever the fuck they want. They were away from school. If your argument is that being away from school makes you dumb, why do we have summer vacation? Most schools in the United States just had 1 or 2 extra months of summer vacation. Some schools had like 6 or 7 months total. In most of that, they did what is called remote learning. So they were still actually engaged in learning. Okay. So when they say it's been well documented, what they mean is the developmental delay of the children has been well documented. There has been no scientific link between school closures and kids being a lot dumber than they were 10 years ago. However, there has been a scientific link, not just but thousands, tens of thousands of research papers, most of them I've covered on this show, that have linked the brain-destroying virus, the virus that can get inside of your brain and destroy your fucking brain cells. It fuses neurons together, which deactivates them, causes miniature tumors, right? And then just eats them alive, essentially. That's what COVID does. It creates holes in your brain and mini tumors in your brain, and especially in kids. That's been well documented. But of course, mainstream media, the people in charge, the people that write this, they don't want to feel like they were responsible in any way, shape, or form for killing their kids. People that read this, teachers, don't want to feel responsible in any way, shape, and form for killing their kids. They want to blame someone else. Parents want to blame someone else. Kids want to blame someone else. So they blame the government's lockdown. Because we live in a post-science world. We don't live in a scientific world anymore. The germ theory of disease is gone. It's over. It's gone. It was common motherfucking goddamn knowledge 10 years ago that kids are disease factories, that they get sick all the time. But 10 years later, during the ongoing pandemic, all of a sudden kids are immune. The colloquialisms are that kids never get sick at all. Except they're sick even more than they used to be. But also they're immune. But the impact on the youngest children is in some ways surprising. They were not in formal school when the pandemic began, and at an age where children spend a lot of time at home anyway. So, okay, they're baking this in. They're saying, okay, our entire premise is bunko. But here's why it's not bunko. They acknowledge that this is fucking stupid. This is dumb shit. This is really, like, you have to be dumber than dog fuck, okay, to believe that a quarantine where kids were not even school age to begin with is to blame for developmental disabilities over, the fucking virus that destroys the brain. Okay, you have to be a fucking idiot, okay? There's no way, shape, or form that these people have an IQ above 7. Okay, let's be honest here. Okay, let's just be real. These are the people teaching your kids? These are the people that are in pediatrics that are taking care of your sick kids? And they don't even believe in the germ theory of disease? Give me a fucking break. The early years, though, are the most critical for brain development, researchers said. Several aspects of the pandemic affected young children. Parental stress. Less exposure to people? Lower preschool attendance? More time on screens and less time playing. Okay, let's take this one at a time here. Parental stress. Well, because we live in fuckville and we force people to have kids under an economic system that requires them to still maintain a job, parental stress is pretty much always climbing. It has nothing to do with the actual pandemic itself. More to say, I'm sure that the pandemic is a part, but most parents at this point don't even believe in the pandemic. They don't even believe it ever happened, right? So, I don't know about that. I would say it's more naturally just the fact that we live in a capitalist system that forces parents to juggle a full-time job and raising children, even though that's literally impossible. Less exposure to people. I don't even know what that means. Most babies are at home with their parents most of the time. Maybe there's a babysitter. Do they mean like uncles and aunts come over less often? Maybe? Possibly? But like, You think that explains across the board? Now, again, most Americans, they did not follow any of these quarantine orders. Most Americans, they still had, if there's a newborn child, you bet all the whole family's coming over to see the kid. That's how most Americans behaved. So this does not explain how most American kids are fucking dumb as shit now, okay? It just doesn't explain it. Lower preschool attendance. 1-year-olds are going to preschool. 1-year-olds are going to motherfucking preschool. What? More time on screens and less time playing. That has nothing to do with the pandemic. This has just been a natural evolution of technology. Okay, so none of this stuff has anything to do with the pandemic, except for possibly lower exposure to people. But that doesn't explain that this is an across-the-board phenomenon. And again, most parents did not actually follow quarantines. So if anything, they had just as much exposure to people when they were 1 year old. So again, this is just fucking stupid garbage. This is fucking stupid fucking garbage. But if you ask most Americans, they'll believe this. They will believe, if you ask most parents or teachers or doctors, they will believe that a non-existent lockdown is to blame more likely than the virus that has been well documented in thousands of research papers to literally destroy the brain. A fake lockdown that never happened, that most parents just ignored anyway, is more to blame than the virus that we've all forced kids to get over and over and over again that has been documented to destroy the brain. Like, I feel like I live in stupid town. Yet because their brains are developing so rapidly, they are also well positioned to catch up, experts said. But they're not catching up. I wonder why. We had school closures in some states for longer than a month or two 4 years ago. If your theory is that 3 months of extra summer vacation has caused 5 fucking years of developmental delay, what is your theory for catching up? Shouldn't they have already caught up? Oh, wait, I forgot. When they go back to school every day, they're getting reinfected with a brain-destroying virus. I've forgotten. No shit. No wonder they're not fucking catching up. And again, we live in Fuckville. We live in Stupid Town, where the dumbest people among us are the ones having kids. And then they blame people like me if I'm too mean to them. Oh, I'm too mean to the parents. Oh, the victims. The parents. Yeah, they're victims all of a sudden. The petty tyrants that bring other people, human beings, into this world to rule over, they're the victims. Bringing a child into this world during a pandemic when you can't afford to homeschool them, they're the victims. Give me a fucking break. The youngest children represent a pandemic tsunami. Headed for the American education system, said Joel Ryan. Who the fuck is Joel Ryan? Let's find out. Who works with a network of Head Start and state preschool centers for Washington State. Oh, so a guy in the education system who obviously has a vested interest in not taking any blame for the fact that we're reinfecting kids with a deadly virus over and over and over again. Instead, he's going to blame the lockdowns. The lockdowns! Not every young child is showing delays. Children in schools that are mostly black or Hispanic, or where most families have lower incomes, are the most behind, according to data released Monday by Curriculum Associates. I'm sure that has no correlation with minorities often being shoved into ghettos, 1930s style, where the state underfunds the school districts, right? And part of the major aspect of underfunding schools is they have poor ventilation, poor air conditioning, which results in a higher circulation of virus. Again, the virus that actively destroys brain cells, especially when you get reinfected over and over and over again on a daily basis. I'm sure that has nothing to do with that. I'm sure that has nothing to do with that. It has to be lockdowns. It has to be. There's no other option. Students from higher income families are more on pace with historical trends. Oh! You mean the students from higher income families, higher income families that send their kids to private school. Private schools that have been documented, I've said on my show multiple times, that have been documented to take COVID seriously. And that have ventilation upgrades and HVAC systems that are decked out with high-grade HEPA filtration. You mean those private schools? Right. The ones where the kids are not circulating in virus, and a lot of them have mask mandates. But no. It's the lockdown! The lockdown! Jesus goddamn motherfucker. But most, if not all, young students were impacted academically to some degree, said Kristen Huff, Vice President for Assessment and Research at Curriculum Associates. These are the experts, by the way. A bunch of career losers who make it their job to infect kids with a virus over and over and over again and then complain when the kids show the symptoms of a brain-destroying virus. Recovery is possible, experts said, though young children have not been a main focus of the $122 billion in federal aid distributed to school districts to help students recover. The COVID money that Joe Biden said we should redirect to police forces. Quote, we 100% have the tools to help kids and families recover. Now that I agree with, said Catherine Monk, a clinical psychologist and professor at Columbia and chair of a research project on mothers and babies in the pandemic. Quote, but do we know how to distribute in a fair way to access the services they need? No, we do not. Here we have more cartoon graphs. What's different now? Quote, I spent a long time just teaching kids to sit still on the carpet for one book. That's something I didn't need to do before. We were talking 4- and 5-year-olds. Why is there a hyphen here? Like, come on. Who are throwing chairs, biting, hitting without self-regulation. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the virus destroying the brain. It has nothing to do with that. No, you silly. It has nothing to do with that. Brooke Allen in Martin 10 has taught kindergarten for 11 years. This year, for the first time, she said several students could barely speak. Several were not toilet trained, and several did not have the fine motor skills to hold a pencil. Now, what's more likely? 2 months of summer vacation extra that most people didn't even follow precautions for, or the brain-destroying virus? What's more likely to result in kids not being able to hold a fucking pencil? Let's be honest here. Like, again, I feel like I live in fucking Stupidville, okay? This is fucking insane that we live in this fucking planet. Jesus goddamn fucking Christ. Children don't engage in imaginative play, or seek out other children the way they used to, said Michaela Frederick, a pre-K teacher for kids with learning delays in Sharon, Tennessee. She said to replace small building materials in her classroom with big soft blocks because students' fine motor skills weren't developed enough to manipulate them. Now, you can read the rest of this, but it's a bunch of teachers pretending like they did nothing wrong, and it's all got to be the lockdowns. Now, again, the facts of the matter. Kids are fucked. The kids are fucked. The children are not all right. The kids are not all right. They're fucked, okay? They're fucked. And who fucked them? Teachers, parents, and the government, the holy trinity of child abuse. And now, instead of blaming themselves or taking responsibility for putting these children in danger, they're just pretending like it's all the government's fault. It's all the government's fault for an extra 2 months of summer vacation. Now, I want to tell you all a motherfucking anecdote. And I'm not here to... I'm not telling you this anecdote because I'm trying to look cool, okay? But I've said this before. When I was young, I had chronic illness. I was extraordinarily isolated, okay? Extraordinarily isolated. Most of my childhood, I had one adult in my life. My mother, who was not there most of the time, right? So I would say maybe 70% of the time I'm completely by myself. 20% of the time I'm at school, right? 10% of the time my mom is like asleep in the other room. I grew up extremely isolated. I didn't go to school. I probably, you know, as far as total absent time, because my chronic illness resulted in me staying home, like, I probably missed over an actual year's worth of an academic year in overall school, maybe even 2 years, right? Of, you know, individual school days added up over the course of my whole career. And I had some of the highest grades in the entire year. Everyone in my year, I was in the top grades, okay? Why is that? Right? That totally goes against this whole theory. Now, again, I'm just one person. This is an anecdote, okay? But again, when I'm seeing articles like this that are blaming 1-year-olds, somehow we put 1-year-olds in masks and put them in like chambers, stasis chambers by themselves. What the fuck, right? 1-year-olds were isolated for 2 months or something. Like, that's not even true. But like, somehow they have that to blame for all of this fucked up shit. And I'm sitting here telling you, again, I was an extremely isolated child. Okay, that's why I'm so fucked up right now. That's why I have no social skills. That's why I have no friends. I don't know how to make friends. Right? That's why I cry myself to sleep every night, okay? Because I don't know what the fuck. Now that I can agree with. Right? But it has nothing to do with my intelligence or my ability to walk around. Right? Or my ability to hold a fucking pencil. What it does have to do with is my social skills, which are, I have like the social skills of like a 4th grader, okay? At best, maybe not even, okay? That's what isolation did to me. It didn't make me dumber. If anything, it made me smarter, because what I did at home was I loved watching nature documentaries, science shows, and I loved to read books. I used to just read for entertainment as a kid. Now, I love video games. I played a lot of video games, but I also read a lot of books for entertainment. Right? So, I don't know, man. This idea that staying at home is somehow causing all children's scores to drop, even children who didn't stay at home, even children who did not, again, there's plenty of red states where they had like 1 or 2 weeks of quarantines, and that's it. And most parents, again, in those red states, because most parents in red states are fucking stupid, right? Let's be honest. They didn't even follow the quarantines to begin with. So, I'm sorry, man. What I think teachers, doctors, and parents are doing, and the government is doing to kids, I personally think is reprehensible. I think it's disgusting. I think it's grotesque. I think it is pure and utter evil. I do. I genuinely do. And that's why on my show, I try to talk about this, because no other left-wing news show acknowledges the reality of what parents, teachers, doctors, the government, our culture is doing to these kids. These kids are going to be permanently disabled for life because their parents believed in anti-germ conspiracy theories. Alex Jones level, Donald Trump level conspiracy theories, Michael Flynn level conspiracy theories that the entire group of parents in this country collectively decided, a collective fiction, mass psychosis, and now an entire generation of children are going to be permanently disabled because of this. And there's no end in sight. It's only going to get worse. So that's why I wanted to start today's show off with that, instead of talking about the debate, which we're going to get into, and the subsequent fun parts of the debate as well that have been pretty great. But again, I'm sorry if I offend you. I don't want to name names or anything, but a couple weeks ago I did a show, and apparently I caused some outrage. Some people were offended that I would suggest that parents who send their kids to COVID factories are partly to blame for killing their children. Hey, my response would be you shouldn't have had a kid in the first place. Now, again, I gotta be honest with you. If you had a kid in 2019 or previous, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I feel for you. You should be doing more. You should try your hardest. A lot of parents say I would do anything to protect my kids. That's not true, right? You should actually do anything to protect your kids. But if you've had a child 2020 up until now, I'm sorry, you're too dumb to be a parent. If you had a kid anywhere from 2020 to now, and you are not, you are not taking this shit extremely seriously, you are not protecting your child in every way, shape, and form imaginable. And I know some parents out there, they're trying their best in this environment, and it's really hard. But part of me struggles to understand why you would want to have a child during a pandemic. Other than you love being a petty tyrant, or you want to enact the family drama that you were engorged in as a kid onto another human being. Put them through the same shit that you were put through. I don't know, man. Or you're just dumb. You don't know anything about germs. But if that's the case, again, none of these people should be having kids. I'm sorry. It's pathetic. It's sad. It's grotesque. what parents are doing to their kids. It really is. And, if someone out there wants to cry about it, feel free to fucking cry about it. Okay? Feel fucking free. Cry your heart out. But don't cry about my show making you all triggered and sad. Cry about the fact that, oh, fuck, I made a mistake and brought a kid into a fucking fucked up world without actually caring about them in any significant way, and now they're permanently disabled. That's what I would cry about if I'm a triggered little parent out there. Anyway, let's talk about this. Heritage Foundation president celebrates Supreme Court immunity decision. Quote, "We are in the process of the Second American Revolution." I feel like there should be more to that quote in the headline. I mean, there is more to that quote, but I feel like that should be in the headline, personally. And this goes back into the parent thing. Imagine having a child when we're on the precipice of fascism. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm triggering you. But imagine having a fucking child on the precipice of Nazi fucking America. Like, I mean, the decision-making skills of parents, needless to say, not doing so well. Okay, I'm just throwing that out there. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, which is some fucked up right-wing think tank that drafts legislation in this country. They drafted most of the legislation for the Bush administration, for example. In spite of all this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. No one in the audience should be despairing. Now, for those of you that are uninitiated, the Supreme Court released a flurry of decisions. Most notably, the destruction of the Chevron doctrine, which is what gives the executive branch power to regulate things like the EPA or the SEC or the FDA, right? The legislation is passed basically saying we need to hit certain kinds of standards. And in that legislation, it says, and these organizations, the EPA or whatever, are in charge of hitting these standards. And then the EPA drafts the actual plan to actually get to those standards or whatever. The Supreme Court, the Chevron doctrine basically is what enables that. The Supreme Court has simultaneously ruled that the executive branch, the president specifically, has total immunity for anything. They can commit any crime and cannot be prosecuted for it. And at the same time, the executive branch has no power to regulate the environment. Those are the two most notable decisions. Third place, while being important, is that they banned homelessness. Homelessness is illegal. In all 50 states, if you sleep outside, you are a criminal and can be arrested and thrown in jail. Several counties, several states are already jacking up punishments for homelessness. It is now a criminal offense to not have a place to live. You are a criminal on par with heroin dealers, on par with murderers, on par with thieves, on par with burglars, on par with rapists, on par with domestic abusers. Because you don't have a place to live, you are now a criminal. That is another thing that the Supreme Court ruled on. And then, now let's get back into this one. No one should be discouraged. We ought to really be encouraged by what's happening yesterday. And in spite of all the injustice, which of course friends and audience of this show, of our friend Steve, know, we are going to prevail. I hate reading these transcripts of right-wingers because it's really... I mean, that said, I would love to see people transcribe my shows one day, and I'd like to read that. Number 2, to the point of the clips, and of course, your preview of the fact that I'm an early American historian and love the Constitution. The Supreme Court ruling yesterday on immunity is vital, and it's vital for a lot of reasons. But I would go to Federalist number 7. And if people in the audience are looking for something to read over Independence Day weekend, in addition to rereading blah, blah, blah. Again, the founders put impeachment and conviction of the president into the Constitution. The idea that the founders who put in the entire concept of impeachment wanted the president to have immunity from crimes. I mean, what? 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 Now, this is the important part. And so I come full circle on this response. And just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. And this is the real quote, and this should be in the headline. They're saying it out loud, y'all. They're saying that they are doing the fascist takeover of America, and that they will kill you if you dissent. They will kill you. Donald Trump, if he wins the election, he will have total presidential immunity from ordering police to shoot and kill protesters on sight. Let's imagine if Donald Trump wins, there's probably going to be a protest on Inauguration Day. The moment Donald Trump enters the presidency, he can tell police to shoot and kill thousands of protesters, and it will be legal. If you dissent from a second Trump administration, you will be killed. That's what they're saying. They're telling you this now. If you protest a second Trump administration, you will be killed. You will be murdered. In 2020, Donald Trump put out a hit squad, an extrajudicial assassination of an American citizen called Michael Ryanel, who was someone at a protest who shot and killed a right-winger who was terrorizing people. This right-winger was going around and using bear pepper spray on random people at a protest, and at some point, a left-wing protester named Michael Ryanel shot and killed him, and then ran from the scene. Now, we can have an argument about whether or not it was the right thing to do to run from the scene or to face the scene head on. And the current president at that time, Donald Trump, went on television and said that there will be retribution. Moments later, a hit squad located and assassinated Michael Ryanel, deleted all body cam footage, lied that said he had a gun. All the eyewitness testimony said he had no gun. He didn't even know. He got shot in the back and was murdered without even knowing cops were there. And then Trump went on TV and bragged about it and said he would do it again. And that was before this ruling. How come no one, not even the ACLU or whatever, sued Donald Trump over the extrajudicial assassination of Michael Ryanel? How come that didn't happen? They knew they could get away with it before this ruling, and they're going to get away with it even more so after this ruling, and it's going to get worse. But hey, I'm glad you saddled yourself down with children while we're in the Second American Revolution and fascism is taking over the country. I'm glad you're spending 19 hours a day dealing with your child who has developmental delays because you brought them into the world during a pandemic, and then you're incapable of actually fighting or learning about the world we're living in to maybe make it more habitable for future children that you may decide to have. But hey, whatever. Can't blame the parents. Not allowed. Let's check this out. Signs of avian flu found in San Francisco wastewater. Signs of the H5N1 bird flu virus have been detected at 3 wastewater sites in the San Francisco Bay Area, according to sampling data. Although positive wastewater samples have been found in 7 other states, California is the only one that has yet to report a bird flu outbreak in the herd of dairy cows. So they don't have any reports of actual cow infections of bird flu. But there's bird flu samples in wastewater. Where is wastewater? Sewers. From shit. From poop. You know, poop. Genetic evidence of bird flu was detected in San Francisco wastewater on June 18 and June 26. Additional H5 hits were seen at the site in Palo Alto on June 19 and another on June 10 from West County Wastewater Facility in Richmond. A statement from the state's Department of Health noted that its staffers are working with the CDC and local health departments to determine the source of H5 in wastewater, and noted that they are looking at non-human sources, including domestic poultry and wild birds. Hey, I'm just going to be honest with you. Is it possible that domestic poultry in a major city like San Francisco, you know, people have chickens in their apartments or something, or wild birds, is it possible that fecal matter from these beings can get into the sewers? Yeah, it's possible. And is it possible that's where the H5N1 virus detection is coming from? Yes, it's possible. However, you know what else is possible? That there's a mutation of the bird flu that is passed around humans. And it's possible that we're just finding out about it now. How many people get sick and die without having their sickness looked into? Well, during the COVID pandemic, of which we are currently in, no one even believes in sickness anymore. Everyone is sick all the time, and simultaneously, no one is sick all the time. The pandemic's over, I say, as I have COVID for the 19th time. So people don't care about symptoms of sickness at all anymore. So how many people are getting sick, potentially dying, or barely recovering of bird flu, and because of the desensitization of sickness, no one actually cares to look into whether or not it was bird flu? Is that possible? I think it's also possible. Do I know which one is more likely? No, I do not. This is a quote, as with previous detections reported from before mid-May 24, it is unclear what the source of H5N1 is, and an investigation is ongoing. Department officials wrote in a statement, it is possible that it originated from bird waste or waste from other animals due to San Francisco's sewer system that collects and treats both wastewater and stormwater in the same network of pipes. So again, is that possible? Yes. It's absolutely possible. Health officials said the risk remains low for the general public. Yeah, health officials also said Israel has a right to defend itself. So, I mean, again, what the fuck? Who cares what that says? The virus has not been identified in California cows, but it has been found in wild birds and domestic poultry in the state. The finding is concerning because of the urban origin, said Divab Haktuni Sri Krishna, an entrepreneur who was developing techniques for disease detection, and the chief executive and founder of PatientKnowHow.com. Quote, there are not many dairy or animal farms in San Francisco. There are no dairy farms in Palo Alto or Richmond. Julie Weiss, Palo Alto's watershed protection program manager, said her department's role in the wastewater research does not extend beyond providing wastewater samples to the research team. Kate Gibbs, the spokeswoman for Richmond's West County wastewater facility, referred all questions to the state. Although the samples from the Bay Area wastewater sites tested positive for H5, the testing was not specific for H5N1. However, researchers say a positive genetic identification for H5 is suggestive of bird flu, whether H5N1, the virus that has been found in U.S. dairy cattle and which has infected 3 dairy workers, or H5N2, the subtype implicated in the death of a man in Mexico City earlier this year. Most human influenza A viruses are that of H1 or H3 variety. So you can read more of this, it just goes on to more theories. But again, is it possible that human transmission is here? Yes, it's possible. Is it also possible that this is a false alarm and that it's because, again, birds are shitting and it gets into the sewer system? Yes, that's also possible. But we don't know for sure. Wear a goddamn respirator? This isn't a joke. Let's check this out. Category 5 Hurricane Beryl makes explosive start to 2024 Atlantic season. Hurricane Beryl, the first hurricane of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season, rapidly strengthened to a Category 5 storm unusually early in the year. This explosive strengthening was fueled in part by exceptionally warm ocean temperatures. That heat was one of the factors behind NOAA's prediction in May of an 85% chance that the 2024 hurricane season would be above normal. On top of the heat, another factor pointing to an especially active season is the likely development of La Niña later this summer. La Niña reduces Atlantic trade winds and leads to less wind shear, the changing of wind speed and direction with height. While La Niña has yet to officially develop, the main development region, the area in the tropical Atlantic where most tropical cyclones form, has been near record warm. Sea surface temperatures in the area are closer to what would be expected in the middle of September, the peak of hurricane season, meaning there is ample fuel for Beryl to not only form but to rapidly intensify. We are getting hurricanes that would be horrible at the peak, horrible and unlikely at the peak of hurricane season, and we're getting them. You can even say that June is not even hurricane. You could argue that June is not even really hurricane season. Again, what is usually developing and not even guaranteed on a yearly basis at the peak of hurricane season is now happening at the very, very, very beginning. And I can only assume it's going to get worse. Rapid intensification. Beryl first formed as a tropical depression on June 28, with winds of 35 miles an hour. Within the first 24 hours, the storm rapidly intensified into a hurricane with winds of 75. This was the fastest east that a hurricane has formed in the month of June. In the following 24 hours, Beryl underwent another instance of rapid intensification, becoming an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane. At that point, Beryl was the first Category 4 hurricane to form in the month of June of all time. The previous record was Dennis when it became Category 4 hurricane on July 8, 2005. Rapid intensification has become more common in recent years and is one aspect of tropical cyclone development that is expected to increase globally due to human-caused climate change. So these are, you can see, some of the possible maps of where this hurricane could go. Anywhere from Maine to Hawaii is what I've read. After 2 rounds of rapid intensification, Beryl made landfall on Carriacou Island on July 1, 2024 as a strong Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds above 150 miles per hour. Beryl brought catastrophic winds and life-threatening storm surge to the southern Windward Islands as it tracked into the Caribbean Sea, where it continued to gain strength. On July 2, 2024, Beryl became the earliest Category 5 hurricane observed in the Atlantic on record, and only the second Category 5 hurricane to occur in July after Hurricane Emily in 2005. 2005 was a hell of a year. Beryl beat Emily's record by over 2 weeks. At max strength, Beryl became the strongest July Atlantic hurricane on record with winds of 165 miles per hour. Hurricane Emily only reached a maximum of 160. Exceptionally early. This is exceptionally early for a major hurricane, Category 3 strength or higher, let alone a Category 5 to develop. On average, the first major hurricane does not form until September 1. According to the National Hurricane Center, these statistics have stuck scientists on how exceptional Beryl has been in this season. Beryl's early development is remarkable. Matthew Rosenkranz, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center lead hurricane season forecaster. Jesus, so many qualifying identifiers here. Wrote via email, he explained that the geographical location where Beryl intensified in the tropical Atlantic, just east of the Westward Islands, was extraordinary, as there are characteristics in that area, like increased trade winds and wind shear, that usually hinder intensification of tropical waves. Look at this shit. A little chart here that compares. Look how hot it is, dude. It's crazy. Typically, ocean temperatures are not warm enough either at the surface or deeper down to fuel such strong hurricanes this early into the Atlantic hurricane season, and also inhibiting wind shear is typically still present across the region from late season cold fronts and troughs. But as mentioned before, ocean temperatures are record warm this year, and wind shear was also record low. Rosenkranz said, creating ideal conditions for Hurricane Beryl to rapidly develop. So, we're fucked. If you live in Jamaica, my heart goes out to you. We are fucked. I mean, okay. The only way that we're not fucked, and by we, I mean society, civilization, this version of whatever we call human civilization, the only way we're not fucked is if there is such a gigantic natural disaster, let's say a hurricane that kills several million people, a flood that kills 1 million people, a heat wave that kills 1 million people. We need some sort of large-scale natural disaster. That is the only chance that it could convince the heads of state to do something about this. The heads of the CEOs, right? The heads of the corporate states to do anything about this. And even then, that's not even guaranteed. Imagine if we had a hurricane that killed 7 million people in 15 different states in the U.S. Because they don't give a shit if it happens in Puerto Rico. They don't give a shit if it happens in the Caribbean. What if we had a hurricane that killed 12 million people, or a heat wave that killed 15 million people in India? Is it possible then that the rulers of the world, the rich, the oligarchs, would possibly do something? Maybe I put that at a 10% chance. Every other scenario, there's a 0% chance. They're not going to do anything, no matter what. But I think if there was a large-scale disaster, that is the only thing that puts me above non-0% chance that the oligarchs of this world are going to do anything about it. And even then, I would put it at 10%, like I said. So we're fucked, everybody. And it's not good. It's just not good. It's not good for anybody. Let alone you or me. It's not good for me. I don't like it. Heat waves are getting longer and more brutal. Here's why your AC can't save you anymore. Bingo. When Hurricane Ida battered Louisiana with catastrophic flooding and powerful winds in August 21, more than 1 million people lost power. Then came the heat wave. Temperatures rose above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, a sucker punch to those sweltering in their homes, unable to turn on air conditioning as power outages stretched on for days. It was the heat that proved deadliest in New Orleans, responsible for at least 9 of the city's 14 hurricane-related deaths. The combination of a hurricane heat wave and multi-day power outage is a nightmare scenario. But it's one set to become more common as humans continue to warm the planet, fueling devastating extreme weather. I wouldn't even say humans. Again, this is CNN, but again, the oligarchs, the rich, the powerful continue to warm the planet, fueling devastating extreme weather, and it reveals an uncomfortable truth about the vulnerability of humanity's ultimate protection against heat: air conditioning. Air conditioning is far from perfect. It gobbles up energy, most of which still comes from planet-heating fossil fuels, meaning it exacerbates the very problem it's used to mitigate. Plus, it's only available to those who can afford it, further widening social inequity. But it is also a lifeline against increasingly brutal heat, the deadliest type of extreme weather. It allows people to live in places where temperatures push close to the limits of survivability and where extreme heat even persists at night. Demand for AC is exploding, expected to triple worldwide by 2050. As global temperatures soar and incomes grow. Incomes grow? What? The problem is, without electricity, access to air conditioning is lost, and many electrical grids are being pushed to a breaking point due to increasingly frequent extreme weather, and soaring demand for cooling. Weather accounted for 80% of major power outages across the U.S. Between 2000 and 2023. According to a report from Climate Central. Every aspect of weather is beating on an already vulnerable grid and really giving it a test. In the U.S., the aging grid was designed for the weather of the past rather than the weather of the future. And Michael Webler, a professor, that's a good name. No, not Webler. Unfortunately, it's not a good name. Weber. Still decent, not as good as Webler. A professor in mechanical engineering at the University of Texas in Austin. The main threat is storms, which can bring down transmission wires and poles, but heat, too, is having an impact. If it's really hot, the system works less efficiently. Weber said, also known as Webler in select regions, compares it to how someone might feel running a marathon in the heat. We just kind of break down. The grid can buckle under the weight of demand as everyone cranks up their AC at the same time to cope with the high temperatures. So you can read the rest of this, but again, we're fucked. And just to be extremely clear, not in the good dick way, all right? We are not fucked in the good dick way. We are not having fun tonight, all right, folks? I'm just being honest with you. And again, just to bring it back, you're going to bring kids into this world? Hey, consider me an antinatalist, whatever you want to call me, to make me look like a bad person. You're going to bring kids into this world? Really? More humans into this world that we have right here? Hey, man. Couldn't be me. All right. Before we get on to the debate, here's a chaser for you. Something to make you feel a little bit better about your life. Hey, maybe it is fine to bring a kid into this world. It's not all bad. Oklahoma City police officer's body found in Lake Stanley Draper. Stanley Draper? Is that the guy on Mad Men? Okay, CPD identified the off-duty officer found in Lake Stanley Draper as Officer Grayson Fox. That's a cool name. Grayson Fox. It's unfortunate they were a cop, but that is a good name. Grayson Fox. Damn. I mean, you have a name that, like, you should run for politics. You know, like, Grayson Fox. It's just fun to say. Unfortunately, or depending on your persuasion, fortunately, the name is up for grabs. There is an open seat in the Grayson Fox territory. Quote, "It is with deep sorrow that we announce the untimely passing of Officer Grayson Fox. He drowned July 1st while off duty at Lake Stanley Draper. Officer Fox started the academy on 8/8/23 and was assigned to Hefner Division. Condolences to family and friends during this difficult time. Grayson Fox's greatest public legacy is his dedication to public service. That legacy is rivaled by the joy he brought to many. As a beloved son, brother, and friend, he will be deeply missed by our city when we grieve with the Fox family. Please keep them in your thoughts and prayers." Anyway, just thought I would like to brighten your day. All right. So I got 3 articles here, and they're all from MSNBC, or just NBC News, I guess. But I want to also just bring stuff. I didn't feel like putting up 9 trillion headlines here, but I have these 3 that I'm going to get to in a moment before I set up the stage. So last week, my last show, Thursday night. That's right. I did a show Thursday night. Can you imagine? It was live. My first live show. My first Above It All live show in like a year was last Thursday. And you missed it. Or you didn't. Depending on whether or not you missed it. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. We all know. Horrible showing. Terrible. The worst thing we've ever seen in our lives. A little tough to watch. You know, we can just put it that way. I watched as much as I could. I will be honest with you. But it was a little tough to watch. All right. So the subsequent week, just to be clear, I'm recording this on Thursday. If I were doing a live show tomorrow, I would talk about the UK elections. Go look up the UK elections. When you watch this, just, pause it, open up another tab, check that out. Just here's your reminder. But over the last week, and again, I'm recording this Thursday afternoon-ish right now. So who knows? Over the next 12 or 24 hours, shit could get real with the Biden campaign too. But the dam is burst. Joe Biden basically went into a bunker for the last week, similar to Donald Trump on January 6th. Or no, wait, he went to the bunker during the Black Lives Matter protests. Maybe it was both. I'm not sure. Maybe he was in the bunker for both. But anyway, Joe Biden disappeared. He did like one speech where he was like, I'm gonna get back up or whatever. And Democrats were like, not buying it. And then he disappeared. Hunter Biden has been he's been in the Oval Office for a whole week. He's camped out, don't let any drug sniffing dogs near the Oval Office. Let's just put it that way, okay? And he has shut out all communications with the Democratic Party, so much so that Nancy Pelosi went on TV and basically said, I don't know if we can keep this guy. He ain't talking to me. James Clyburn, the guy who installed Joe Biden as king into this country. He's king now since the Supreme Court ruling. He's king. So King Joe Biden, who has James Clyburn to thank for him ascending to the throne. Even Jim Clyburn went on TV and said, hey, man, if Harris is on top, Biden's on top. I'm supporting the ticket no matter what. But, hey, if Harris is the one on top, I'm in. Now, why would someone like Jim Clyburn say that? We've had 2 Democratic Congress people that have come out and said, this guy's got to go. There have been talks that other Democrats in the Senate and in Congress are going to basically drip out. Like one person every couple days is going to come out and say, hey, this guy's got to go. If you do it all at once, it's one news event. If you drip it out, it's multiple news events sustained over time. Okay? And with all of that to say, now again, my personal opinion, get him the fuck out of there. You all know what my opinion is. With all that to say, I want to show 3 NBC News articles. And I want to juxtapose the headlines here because I think it's really funny. And these all take place in like a 6-hour period of time. All right. Biden says he saw a doctor after the debate, but admits, I screwed up. The statement contradicts earlier White House claims about the president's medical care after a disastrous debate performance that left his allies worried. So the White House basically said the last time he went to a doctor was in February. Biden says he just saw a doctor. I'm not leaving! Biden expands effort to tamp down calls to step aside. The president met with Democratic governors Wednesday evening as the White House and his campaign held separate all-hands calls during the day. Biden privately remains torn between defiance and acceptance amid calls to step aside. Now, just to be clear, look at this. July 3rd, 10 p.m. Okay, July 3rd, 11 a.m. So he says, I'm running at 11 a.m. that night. There's an article that says he doesn't know. He's kind of worried. And then this article is the most recent, July 4th, 10 a.m. So in this one, someone is lying. Biden is lying or the press secretary is lying. Someone is lying. So I'm going to assume it's Biden because we'd all know he doesn't know what fucking day it is. So he probably thinks that the February doctor he saw was like yesterday, right? And then also publicly he's saying, I'm not going anywhere. Privately, he's saying, shit, man, what do I do? What do I do? Look at him. He's looking at the wall. All right. I'm going to read this one because this one's the most interesting. The other ones, I just wanted to use headlines to juxtapose. In recent conversations with aides, family members, and allies outside the White House, President Joe Biden has vacillated between acceptance and defiance in the face of the seismic shift in political standing within his own party, according to 4 people familiar with the matter. In some discussions, Biden has acknowledged that the blowback from his debate performance last week may grow too... I'm sorry, I'm drinking coffee, so I got the acid burps. May grow too large to overcome. While in others, he has been completely dismissive of any notion that he might walk away from his re-election campaign. Now, I just want to say, you know what the best thing to do would be? If the American public think this guy is too old and he can't string a couple sentences together, you know what Joe Biden should do? And I'm not joking. Start a podcast. I'm not joking. Do a daily show. Do a daily show. Morning Joe. Huh? Maybe that name's taken. I don't know. It's pretty obvious. But start a podcast, right? And again, a lot of people are just going to assume you're doing the podcast in the moment where you're the most awake or you're taking drugs or whatever. But do a daily podcast, anything where you're on camera and talking to the American people every day. Possibly do it multiple times a day. Do 2 shows a day, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. The Biden Minute. I'm honest. Like, again, if you were to do that and you were to show, hey, guys, I'm doing a podcast every day. I'm totally fine. That was the fluke. I was so fucking tired that night. Again, in every other performance, he's on top of it. If that were the case, I think he could come back from this. But again, he's locked himself in a bunker. He has not done any public events. He did one rally the day after the debate, and he did like some really lame speech that didn't really land well, and no one really saw it anyway. And then he kind of just went into a shell, like I do. I go in a shell. When I get yelled at, when someone's mad at me, I go in my room and I lock the door for 17 years. That's what Joe Biden is doing. The only difference, I'm not president. Okay? Some members of the president's family, particularly First Lady Jill Biden and their son Hunter Biden, are urging him to make changes to his staff. Changes being to get rid of the non-believers, and increasingly conveying their views about the campaign strategy in an attempt to resuscitate his flailing campaign, 3 people familiar with the matter said. Biden's sister, Valerie Owens, is traveling to Washington on Thursday to join other family members at the White House for the July 4th holiday. But she will also have face-to-face meetings with her brother's campaign, according to a person familiar with her plans. Biden family members have privately pointed fingers at some of his longtime aides over his disastrous debate. They have discussed whether he should fire senior White House advisor Anita Dunn, for instance, or possibly even her husband, Bob Bauer, who is Biden's personal lawyer, 2 people familiar with the matter. Now, one thing that's very interesting about this is that over the last week, we have seen reports of more leaks coming out of the White House than we've ever seen this entire administration. I'm not even joking. The amount of leaked phone calls, leaked reports, leaked meeting, who's in what meetings, leaked, all this stuff, not just from the White House, but just from Congress. There's a lot of leaked memos from congressional staffers that are like, yeah, the people I work for, they don't buy it. They're going to say something at some point here. We have never seen this many leaks. Okay, I'm just being like, this is like Leak City, okay? We got to call a plumber. Or not, because this is entertaining. Dunn and Bauer, early backer. I don't give a shit about Dunn and Bauer. White House Chief of Staff Jen Zients denied there have been any discussions about ousting Dunn or Bauer. Quote, the president and the first lady have full confidence in their team, including... these are like some scapegoats and no one gives a shit about. A senior Democrat said the family is scared. These advisors are incredibly loyal in doing their jobs. This is unfounded. An aide said Biden has told advisors he doesn't fault the team that prepared him for the debate for... He doesn't fault the team that prepared him for the debate for his performance. I mean, that's good, right? He acknowledges he's the problem, at least. Members of Biden's family have been among the loudest voices rejecting any suggestion that he drops out of the race, according to people familiar with the private discussions. Biden, too, isn't inclined to withdraw, which he has stressed in public appearances. But he is weighing his own instincts to stay and fight, and his family's reinforcement of those instincts against the mounting calls from the step aside and data showing the damage his debate performance did to his re-election prospects. And I am not lying when I say this. It is Jover for Joe Biden. If Joe Biden does not step down, Donald Trump will win. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. All right? Before the debate, I thought it was 50-50. I did. Going back even further, in 2020, I was 100% convinced Joe Biden would win. I'm not even joking. I said it on my show. I said 100% no chance of anything otherwise. Okay? I was 100%. I didn't say 90%. I didn't do any of that. I said 100% Joe Biden is going to win. No question about it. I was fully confident in the 2020 election. I would have preferred Bernie Sanders. I didn't like Joe Biden, but I was convinced he was going to win. Last Wednesday, I was at 50-50 that Joe Biden is going to win. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. If Joe Biden stays in the race, I believe that there is a 2% chance he can win. And that really just, it all boils down to Trump on whether or not he hangs himself, colloquially speaking, you know. If they do another debate and Trump goes way too crazy, or if Trump gets sentenced in a way that's really bad, or Trump can very easily fuck this up. But have you noticed something? Have you noticed that Trump hasn't really been doing anything over the last week? You want to know why? Because he's taking it easy. He knows it's already over for Joe Biden. And he knows if Joe Biden stays in the race, that Donald Trump, he knows that as long as he keeps his mouth shut and stays out of the public eye, maybe he'll do a rally or two to shore up the base. But he knows as long as he doesn't make mainstream news and Joe Biden stays in the race, he's got it in the bag. He knows that. So that's why over the last week, Donald Trump has been a little quiet. There's also been reports that Joe Biden had a cold during the debate. Now, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic is not over, and it's been raging, and we're at the peak of the summer surge this summer. So it's more than likely Joe Biden had COVID, and it's also possible he gave Trump COVID, similar to the other debate that they had. You know, reversing the roles here. So it's possible Trump is sick, and that's why he's not doing a lot of public stuff. But again, I would say if Joe Biden is the nominee, if he is on the ballot come November, it's over. 2% chance that he wins. It's over. It's Jover. It's done. Okay? That's my opinion. I think the only thing that could save Joe Biden, assuming he stays in the race, is Trump self-destructing. And I think the people around Trump, and also Trump himself, know that and are going to try not to self-destruct. Ergo, Joe Biden's got to go. Now, you may think I'm hopping on a bandwagon, but I've been saying this shit for years. First of all, I voted for Bernie Sanders. I didn't want this fucking guy in the first place. From 2019, I was telling y'all the 2020 primary was Biden versus Bernie. That's what it was. It was Biden or Bernie. Now, you may remember there were 30 trillion candidates. Why did 30 trillion candidates run? They wanted to raise their profile, and they wanted to eat up television time from the real race of Biden and Bernie. That was the race, Biden versus Bernie. Everyone else was a distraction on Team Biden. They were all working for Biden, right? Because if there's 30 candidates running, Bernie, right, gets a way less percentage time of speaking. Now, if you look back at the debates in 2020, Bernie was usually ranked the lowest for total time allotted for speaking. Why? Because it was Biden versus Bernie. It's just that Team Biden had 29 candidates and Bernie had 1. Elizabeth Warren was on Team Biden the whole time. Fucking little bitch, okay? Andrew Yang, a lot of people pretend he was some like left-wing super genius. He was on Team Biden the whole time. I'm just telling you the facts of the matter, okay? It was a Bernie versus Biden race. That's what it was. And Biden won. Why? Because Clyburn did a whole like Kevin Spacey type move and demanded everyone drop out at a certain time and endorse Biden right before Super Tuesday. So that's why we have Biden in the first place, right? Because Democrats were afraid of Bernie Sanders. Biden said and made clear he would probably only run one term. And then he decided to run a second term anyway. So I just want to say I've been anti-Biden before it was cool. It was pretty cool back then, but it's way cooler now to be anti-Biden. I was telling people Biden has dementia back in 2020. Back in 2020! It was obvious this guy couldn't handle the job. I have been screaming out of the rooftops on my show about Joe Biden's age issue, and it's not just the age number-wise. As we know, there's chronological age and biological age. You can be chronologically 80 years old and have the body and mind of a 60-year-old. Well, maybe not mind. Usually the mind is the wise. You're wise for your years, right? But you can have the physical health of a 60-year-old or 50-year-old at the chronological age of 80. So it's not about the age number. It's about the age in his biology. We know that Joe Biden has had COVID several times. We know that COVID accelerates dementia. I said this earlier in the show. COVID causes holes in the brain. It accelerates dementia. If you already had dementia before catching COVID, It's basically a 1.25x multiplier on how fast your dementia is going to develop. We know that Joe Biden is, he's the president. He's probably really stressed. That's probably also accelerating dementia. This has been obvious for years. So when all these people are coming out there and saying, Joe Biden is the best president in the world, blah, 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 but for the good of the country, blah, 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 he's got to step back. I don't know, man. It's been pretty obvious for a long time now to anybody that's been watching that this guy is fucked in the face. Okay? And not in the good dick way. Quote, he can see that there is potentially no real path, one of the people said, but he's being pushed. So you can read the rest of this, but the point is, regardless of how many times Joe Biden says I'm staying in, I think that there's a real chance that he'll get kicked out. I would argue there is a 16% chance that Kamala Harris is the Democratic nominee, and I'm just going to put it there. I don't like Kamala Harris. Go back and watch my videos during the 2020 primary. Some of the first fucking primary videos I made were about how much Kamala Harris fucking sucks. Okay, I hate her. That said, she's the only option. I know. A lot of people are like, oh, let's get Bernie. Here's how Bernie can still win. Okay, hey, as far as memeing goes, I'm right there with you, but it's not going to happen, okay? People are saying, oh, let's get fucking Gavin Newsom, Roy Cooper, Gretchen Whitmer in there. Not going to happen. Okay, it's Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. And if you ask me, I'm going to take Kamala Harris any day of the week. Okay, I'm being honest with you. She still loses to Trump in a lot of polling, but she loses by a lower margin. And I do think Kamala Harris, like her, hate her, whatever the fuck you think, okay? She's affable enough in order, if she got in there and the campaign really tried hard to make her seem relatable, I think it would work on enough people in the American population that she would win the election. If Kamala Harris is the nominee against Donald Trump, I would go back to thinking that there is a 100% chance that Donald Trump loses the election. That's my opinion. I don't like Kamala Harris. I think she's garbage. There's a reason she's a part of the Biden administration. It's because, politically, she's trash. However, if Kamala Harris became president via the 25th Amendment or Joe Biden stepping down, and she did a couple of good things, 100% chance she wins. Now, if Joe Biden stays on as president, but Kamala becomes the top of the ticket, I would say 99% chance that she wins. That's just my opinion. But yeah, so there you go. It's not looking good for Joe. Next time I do a show, it could already be over. Hey, by the time you're watching this, it could already be over. I'm recording this Thursday afternoon, so we'll see. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed today's broadcast. Emphasis on broad. That's all I got.